college playoffs are set to start January 1st, first of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the team set with it being Washington, Michigan, Texas, and Alabama. Big controversy came because undefeated Florida State was left out of the tournament because the deciding factor was they aren't the same team that they were for the majority of the year. What are your thoughts on this playoff? One, and do you think the selection committee got the selections right for the playoffs?
I'm going to answer the second question first. No,
Okay.
They didn't get it right.
You don't think they got it right?
Florida State should have been in the championship. Regardless of how the backup quarterback is playing for Florida State, regardless of Jordan Travis getting hurt, they're still an undefeated team who won their conference championship in a Power 5 team. They deserve to be in that championship regardless.
Power 5 conference.
Power 5 conference is what I'm going to say. Yes. Thank you. So now Alabama, who is a one-loss team, who also won their conference championship. They beat Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Do they deserve? Because of course it's Alabama that took. Because they were at 8 and then jumped to 4.
Right.
Florida State was at 4, wins their championship, gets pushed back to 5, and I'm like, to me, yes, Jordan Travis was one of the most exciting players in college football this year. One of the best quarterbacks in the nation, was leading that team to an undefeated season. The biggest thing to me is you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you know a little bit more about college football than me. I don't think there's ever been an undefeated conference champion Power 5 team that has not gone has not exactly. So now all of a sudden, Florida State is that one team in the decade of the college playoff that happens to, because they want to put, and I feel like it's because I've been watching a lot of, different sports podcasts and different networks that do a lot of sports talk. And since week 5, Nick Saban has been campaigning for Alabama to be in this playoff. Talk about how much money the university brings in, how much money the university will lose if they're not in the playoff, how much money they have in broadcasting deals with these networks, and how just campaigning for his team. And a lot of coaches campaign for their teams. I get that, but they campaign around this time of the year when the selection is starting to happen, not at the beginning of the year, week 5. You know what I'm saying? And would it be? Alabama has been so dominant over the past decade that it seems weird to have a playoff without them. But to me, they didn't deserve to be in there. Florida State had all. But another thing too that I see is they don't want to have another situation like they had last year, where Georgia beats the brakes off of TCU 65-7, and it's like, do they deserve to be in if they're not the same team? I get that, but at the same time, those kids played their heart out every single week, 13 straight weeks, won their championship, Power 5 conference, undefeated. This has never happened before, and it's like, why keep them out now? I don't think they got it right. I think Texas, Washington, and why am I drawing a blank on the last? Michigan deserve to be in there. I don't think Alabama does. What you think? Do you think they got it right?
I'm on the fence with this.
Okay.
I feel like they got it right. However, the reason for Florida State not being in there, to me, is a weak argument.
It's bullshit.
With them saying that the reason that they didn't keep Florida State in it is because they're not the same team as they were when they had Jordan Travis. And, one of their criteria is if a high tier player on the team is missing, then they're not the same team. They can remove them. I think that's BS, because we know football is a physical sport. You and I both played it. Everybody, even though it's not the same game that it was 5-10 years ago, as with these different rules that are being in place, it's still a physical sport, still a high contact sport. Anything can happen. So based off of that criteria, one high tier player or high caliber player on the team being missing, it changes all the dynamics of the team. We've seen multiple times where players getting ready for games in preparation of have gone down with crazy injuries. An example of that would be Joe Burrow at the beginning of the season, had that calf strain injury. He didn't play for the first 4 weeks of game. First 4 weeks of the season, NFL season. Same thing could happen here, and we've seen it in between the last season of the game and bowl season, where a player gets hurt doing just routine things in practice. So it can happen. So with their argument, their own argument, one player that's high caliber being missing changes the dynamic of the team. What if this happens to, and I hate putting stuff like this, but it's just a scenario. What if this happens to one of the players on Texas? What if this happens to one of the high players on Alabama, Washington, Michigan? Now, do they deserve to be in the championship or in the playoffs because you put them in there already? That changes the whole dynamic of their team. So I just feel like that's a weak argument to say that because one player is gone, you negate everything that they did prior to all of that. You negate the fact that after Jordan Travis was lost and got injured, that Florida State beat an SEC team in Florida, and then they went on to win the ACC championship with a top 25 team that had in Louisville, who also was like a top 14 offense, and they held them to only 6 points in the championship game.
Mm-hmm.
So you're negating all of that hard work. So, but I do feel like Alabama beating Georgia and losing to Texas, who is also in the playoffs, they probably deserve to be in there too, even though they had all of the turmoil with the quarterback earlier in the season. Then they finally figured out that Milroe was their guy. And they went on to start dominating in the SEC. So I'm on the fence with it. I feel like they may have gotten it right, but the argument for why Florida State is not in the championship game is a weak one to me.
It is, and the argument for people who are advocating for Florida State is stronger than the argument that the bowl selection committee would have, or the playoff selection committee would have, to be perfectly honest. And you can always go to, Alabama being a powerhouse, SEC being the best conference in college football. You can always go to strength of schedule, which Alabama had a number 5 strength of schedule, and Florida State had the number 55 strength of schedule. You can always go to that. But the fact of the matter is, you're saying that they don't deserve to be in the championship because of one player. Negating, like D'Lo said, negating all the hard work that university, that football team has put on throughout the entire year. The end of the season where they beat Florida and Louisville. And it's like,
with the third string quarterback at that in the championship game.
With the third string quarterback. And granted, he hasn't been playing well. And yes, that offense would be better with Jordan Travis. But that's not to say that university does not deserve to be in that championship, in that playoff, playing for a national championship. And if one of the arguments is also, well, y'all voted, y'all wanted the TCU to be in there because they played so well and they ended up getting their ass beat. Who's to say that's going to happen this year with Florida State? I think Florida State this year is a better team than what TCU was last year, in my opinion.
Yep.
So I mean, it's just it just sucks that those guys put so much hard work into this game, and the look on their face when I saw the video, the look on their face whenever they saw that they weren't selected for the playoff, and they're gonna go play Georgia, you know what I'm saying, in the Orange Bowl, and it's gonna be a good game. I think Georgia
wins. Not the
wins
Orange
it.
Bowl.
Which one is
Not
it?
the Orange Bowl.
Which one is
They're
it?
playing in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, I think.
Okay, gotcha. I got you. I'm sorry. That's my mistake. But but
Louisville is in the Orange Bowl.
Let me check. I'm gonna go look it up. But yeah, I think they deserve to be in it, man. I mean, it just sucks that those guys didn't get it, but we'll see, man. We'll see what happens with it, bro.
It's definitely a business. Yeah, it's the Gator Bowl, Capital One. Oh, actually, you might be right.
Georgia, it is the Orange Bowl. Yeah, it's Capital One Orange Bowl. It's Florida State, Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're playing in the Orange Bowl. So I mean, it just sucks, man. It sucks, bro. I feel for Florida State, but that's just how the committee chose it, man.
Yeah, but we know that, and we'll get into this in our next segment, but we know that college football is a business. And this was a business decision because not only do you think about what is going to get views, what's going to get viewership. You also think about the history and the pageantry of the different conferences. And as you mentioned earlier, the SEC has been and is the best football conference in America. And they have been for the last, I want to say 12 years or so. Since the BCS's inception, the SEC has been the best conference. And so to have a playoffs potentially with 4 teams and not have an SEC team in there would have been like, what? Y'all can't do that. And
it would have been crazy. It would have been crazy, yeah.
Yeah, but because of the business of the NCAA and because they have to own up and report to their sponsors, they had to get somebody from the SEC in there. And since Georgia just lost to Alabama, it had to be Alabama. But if this was 20 years ago, the roles would have been in reverse because Florida State was so dominant and so on top of college football at that time that them being undefeated, they probably would have been number one in the playoffs rather than, I think it was Michigan. And Alabama would be on the outside looking in. So it's definitely who's hot at the time, what conference is hot at the time. ACC, while it is a Power 5 conference, just like the Pac-12, just like the Big Ten, just like the SEC, the ACC is seen this year at least as one of the weaker conferences. So probably why Florida State didn't get in. But overall, I think it's going to be a good playoffs. I think it's going to be exciting. Michigan was dominant in the Big 12 this year, even with the little fiasco that they had at the end of the year or throughout from from week 6 on with the sign stealing allegations and scandal that they had. Washington looked good in the Pac-12, which it will no longer be after this year because all the teams moving to the Big 10, to the SEC, so on and so forth, or Big 12, not the SEC. And who else we have? Washington, Alabama played good. Their only loss being to Texas. And Texas was dominant in the Big 12, other than losing to Oklahoma, who was a ranked team. So I think it's going to be a good playoffs. You're going to have power versus power in Alabama and Michigan the first game, and then finesse with Washington and Texas. And we'll see who's the best out of the championship game, out of the winners of those two. So I think it's going to be exciting, even though it comes with controversy.
You willing to make a prediction?
I think Alabama wins.
You think Alabama wins the championship again?
I think Alabama beats Michigan in a close game, and then I think Texas beats Washington, and then Alabama gets its revenge on their loss against Texas early in the season. Which is why I think they got it right, but the argument is a weak one.
Yeah, the argument is a weak one. With who's in there right now, I think the national championship is going to be between. I think Michigan beats Alabama, and I think Washington beats Texas, and I think Michigan wins the championship. But that's just me. Oh, you still here? So that just means you love the content. And if that is the case, go ahead and click this video on the screen right here. We're pretty sure you're going to love this one as well. And we're so close to that 500 subscriber goal. So there's a button right here on the screen. Go ahead and hit that to subscribe to the channel. And we're on all your streaming platforms, wherever you find your podcasts.